What's up, everybody? Welcome to the State of Wild, episode 141, a regular YouTube video web series podcast thingy. My name is Meowthin, as usual, and as usual, I'm joined by my two good friends and co-hosts, Roffle and Corbett. Guys, how you doing tonight?
Yeah, I'm good. I joked about this previously when it was originally released, but Twist is officially saved, right? Like, we had our first Twist balance patch as we kind of predicted. Clearly, New Age is fixed. There are no problems left with the format, and everybody's happy.
Titans.
Titans. All right.
Titans.
Wrong T.
Yeah, I didn't know how to add on to that, Roffle. I liked the world and the picture that you painted, and I didn't want to smear the whole canvas. So Titans, we've had all of them revealed at this point, and we're gonna review them as well as talk about the balance changes. So, kind of a lot of stuff going on. So looking forward to digging into that with you guys today.
All right, so my job has been done because these guys have introduced everything that we're going to be talking about today. So, makes my life easy. Let's go ahead and dive right into the first note here, and that is the twist balance changes. So they came out, I think, a little bit earlier than at least I was expecting, because it was like a week and a half rather than their normal 2-week cadence. But yeah, well, I guess we should talk. There was a standard balance patch for those of you guys that are Whomper fans and or haters. That did get changed. That's Barnes in Druid. So yeah, things ended up getting changed. All right, now let's talk about Twist. Let's talk about that thing. I want to read the dev comment before we dive into the bans, which is important to know that they made for the format. So I'm going to take 2 seconds here. I'm going to monologue. And so the dev comment, part of the Twist beta is exploring our own design objectives when it comes to the mode. The whole premise of the mode is that there are quickly updating formats already built into it, so balance changes might not be as necessary to keep things fresh. However, we are still able to make card bans when we think that they make the format better. So here we're taking a lighter approach to the 3 big outliers in the current format. We'll see how these changes impact players and might take further or different actions in the future, including next time we bring back the New Age format. Okay, so they made this comment, and then they banned 3 cards when it came to Twist. So they banned Glide out of the Quest Demon Hunter deck, they banned Crypt Keeper out of the Quest Druid deck, and then they banned Refreshing Springwater out of the Amulet Mage, Hollow Mage, I don't really know what we're calling it, the Spell Mage, the Drakefire Amulet into Kill You Mage, I think is the official name here. So before we dive into the specific decks, I mean, philosophy-wise, I think we agree that we like bans better than nerfs, right? Because that doesn't change anything in Wilder Standard. But how are you guys feeling about just kind of what feels like a light set of changes compared to what people might have been asking for?
Philosophy-wise, I think that makes sense, right? Especially if they're going to make a habit out of selling pre-constructed decks. Like, you can't go and kind of completely delete the decks as much as, I would like to see some of those decks go after having already encountered them for quite a while in Wild. But I guess it makes sense just because it is kind of it's not your, again, marquee format in the same way that Wild isn't, so it's going to take a lower priority to Standard, especially for cards that are, live in Standard. It's unlikely that we'll see bans for the sake of Twist, or sorry, nerfs for the sake of Twist when they're live in Standard, in the same way that we wouldn't necessarily in Wild. And we've already lost cards for the Wild format because of the sins of how they play in Standard, and we know how bad that feels. So yeah, I think bans make sense for a relatively short-lived format. I think to your point earlier in terms of the speed at which they arrived at them, I think that's kind of necessary given the limited time frame that they have for the format. If they waited 2 weeks, that would be halfway through the season and just be too long, The other piece that I saw that I just noticed when you read is the next time we bring the New Age format back. So I hope that's not anytime soon, because I do not know. I know that there are people that are enjoying it, but I don't think that's the majority of at least the vocal players or the vocal feedback that I'm hearing.
Yeah,
so
I want to step in for a second here. So New Age is technically just Ashes of Outland forward. The whole no neutrals thing is just kind of the twist that they did on that. So the next time they might bring back New Age, I'm assuming stuff like neutrals might still be in.
Right, and there might be right, but
Yeah.
then you still just have the same, like, you just have Tony in your questline druid. So that, like, they would need to incorporate a different twist that's maybe a little bit more limiting in order to not just arrive back at the same questline decks.
Yeah, I didn't catch that the first time either, that they were planning on, they noted they would bring it back. It makes sense. Like, I did initially envision rules being something that they were willing to revisit, very similar to how they do it in Tavern Brawl. Often we see the same Tavern Brawl with a twist. No, oh, that was kind of unintended, but with a slight difference, when we bring it back. So it makes sense that they would potentially do it with this as well. But yeah, the patch was not what I was very vocal that I was not in favor of the specific choices necessarily in this. I think that it's a little difficult for me to wrap my head around what the clear intent of the patch was, even given the dev notes and commentary around it. The commentary was very limited, I will say. There also wasn't like further context given on Twitter. Maybe they just felt they didn't need to. Or, again, maybe it's just because they themselves are still trying to calibrate what they want to be doing with this game mode and what the player base wants as well.
They've taken a lighter touch to standard recently, so I guess that isn't necessarily surprising that they would continue that out to the twist format as well. But again, we go back to the fact that the format is so short-lived, where if you are going to make a change, if you're going to have this light of a touch to where, at least with one deck in particular, it's like you didn't really do much at all. What is the point of making that change if it's just going to be such a limited time frame anyway? Like, yes, you're toning down some of the outliers, and I would argue they didn't hit all three. They missed the target in terms of the decks that I would consider the top three outliers in the format. First and foremost, we already addressed that last time. And then I think that they just kind of, I don't think they hit necessarily the big power outliers within those decks even. They just hit things that were maybe on the higher end of the power level, but not the big enablers necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of people were a little bit confused by specifically the targets for Questline Demon Hunter and the Mage deck. Like, I understand the Crypt Keeper ban because that limits a lot of the early stats and it limits a lot of the swing turns. It's a big blow to Quest Demon Hunter. Or, I mean, I keep mixing this up, and I've done it for the past 2 months.
Same.
I understand the Crypt Keeper is a big nerf to Quest Druid. I think I understand what they were going for with the Glide, where it helps enable the stupid early pop-off turns. I said helps, not the sole reason that it happens. And it removes a very big feels bad from the opponent's perspective of having their hand ripped away from them. I don't know if that's a bigger feels outlier than something like Mana Burn, but I think I can understand a little bit of the logic there. Whereas the Springwater is the one that's maybe the most confusing to me, and maybe it's just because I haven't played against Amulet Mage or played it a lot myself, but it felt like if you really wanted to go for the feels-based nerfed, something like Solid Alibi might have been a little bit better, or even something like Springwater. Not Springwater.
Flow.
What is it called? The Siphon Mana, the big mana discounts for the deck, and that really slows it down. So I feel like I could understand what they were going for. And I think it's important to note that what you mentioned this when we were doing the kind of intro to this. Some people do like it, right? Some people do enjoy this format. And so they didn't want to straight up delete quest lines, and I think that was a huge way that they approached this set of balance changes, where they didn't want to delete any of the decks in the format. They wanted to kind of keep that identity, and even if it was the most popular identity for a lot of the vocal people out there, I think that's an important thing to note, is that this is the identity, this is what they wanted, so they didn't want to kind of take that away from people.
Yeah. I think of the three, the Crypt Keeper is the one that probably makes the most sense, just because not only does it reduce some of the early game stat dump that the deck is capable of, but it also opens up a little bit more counterplay to the deck, where aggression was just kind of stopped in its tracks to Crypt Keeper, especially the relative power of aggro decks within the format compared to from hand damage. but like, I don't know, the glide and maybe to a lesser extent the refreshing spring water just seems like they miss the mark a little bit. And like we haven't even really talked about it in depth, but they just completely left Questline Shaman as is, despite it you know, being I think a higher power outlier at least than the Amulet Mage prior to the balance changes, and certainly now.
No problem with the mage change. I didn't care specifically like how you wanted to handle the mage. If anything, I probably prefer going after the speed of the deck rather than alibi. So I think spring like me outside Siphon Mana, flow. You could even do like Conj Mana Biscuit. Any of that stuff kind of does slow it down, but so does spring water. Take away that draw power is a big deal. So I didn't really feel strongly about it, and I probably preferred to slow it down more than just the alibi change. So no problems. Glide was definitely the one where I was, very vocal that I thought this wasn't going to be enough of a hit. I had a lot of people suggesting like, oh no, I crafted the deck and now I can't play it anymore, like before the patch went live, and I'm like, I think you're gonna be fine. I think you're gonna be just fine, because Glide was one of the weakest cards in the deck. That didn't seem to be the public perception, as far as I could tell. It seemed like a lot of people were like very big thumbs up, especially among some of the players that hadn't played the deck as much. But Glide was not always great because it gets stuck in your outcast position. It's very, very bad of the acrobatics. And it often in your mid stages of the quest doesn't really help you very much, because you can lose cards that have already been discounted. So yes, the disruption part can be very strong in certain matchups, like against mage specifically, but you nerfed mage. So there's not like a lot of pure combo collect everything in your hand decks in the format. So overall, the glide change, like I thought it was going to be like a very, very light touch, and that's what it seems to have been so far. So yeah, it just feels like there are like you guys already talked about. It does seem that they were very much in favor of like, let's not delete decks, which I get, but it's like one for thee and something different for me, where it's like I don't know, like Druid kind of got shot and then Demon Hunter got like a little slap, so it's a little jarring, I suppose.
Yeah, I felt like going into the patch, I was or between announcement and release, I was taking crazy pills again, because like in my experience, I haven't played the deck a lot. I've played against the deck a fair amount of times, but like Glide didn't seem like a big power outlier to me. So like I'm glad you said that, because I thought I was losing my mind. There are times where Glide is actively bad for the Demon Hunter opponent, because it reduces the number of cards in their hand by about half if they happen to draw it after a Glaive Tar proc, or even just after their natural draw. Like you can go from 6 or 8 cards to 4. Like, why would you want to do that? And if so, yeah, I don't get that one in particular, and it overall, I don't feel very inclined to play much more Twist this season, because it's just going to be encountering the same decks prior to the nerf that I was, minus some of the Hollow Mages.
And the Druids. I haven't seen a single one since the patch.
Well, they swapped in with a different Druid, which was actually showing some promise prior to the patch as well. Like I think just like a tokeny Beast Druid seems to be quite good.
Yeah, I'll use this to pivot. I know, Corb, you've done a little bit of HS Replay dive in, some research. You want to talk us through what's good, what at least what you're seeing in the Twist meta for those that aren't super in tune with it.
So mostly focused on higher ranks. Obviously, at lower ranks things might look a little different. But Demon Hunter seems like the best deck. It feels like the best deck when I play it, so that's great. Shaman, still really good. Shocker. Poison Rogue. People are playing a ton of Poison Rogue. Like, it's one of the more underplayed decks, and I don't know if that's going to change, because it's not like there's a ton of attention on Twist right now. Like, it wouldn't shock me if things really stagnate in terms of meta developments and stuff. But Poison Rogue is very, very solid. Beast Druid is fine. Like, that deck's solid. I think it's better probably at lower ranks, where it punishes jank a little bit more, but it's okay. Priest doesn't look impressive. Probably very difficult to play perfectly, so I'm sure it would look a little bit better with someone who's a bit more adept at the deck. But the Miracle Priest stuff with Nazmani, that's fine. Flow Mage continues to look bad. Questline Druid looks really bad right now, but I think it's probably just fine in hindsight. Like, it looks really bad because I think players got super weird after the bounce patch with what they were trying. But if you just play the old list without Crypt Keeper, it'll probably be fine-ish as well. So that's pretty much it. Like, there's really not that much variety. It's not like the patch opened up a whole bunch of new decks. It looks not like the patch kind of like took out this massive chunk of space in the meta to be filled with new things. It's sort of just the same decks minus Questline Druid, and they're kind of on the same scale of power, basically. Maybe Rogue is slightly better now because you don't have to worry about the Druid, but like, other than that, like, the thing is that the patch was very it's hard to feel like the patch was accomplished. Like it's hard to feel like it did something significant because everything's kind of the same. There's a lot of jank as well right now. And again, I don't know how much that'll change. But yeah, a lot of these good decks I'm talking about, they don't make up like as big a portion of the meta as you might expect. But yeah. I know Control Priest, Rami's been playing that at Rank 1 Legend, but that hasn't really shown up a ton yet, more broadly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think...
Go ahead.
I think in that case, even Rami said that after the patch, it's kind of deteriorated in power just because it doesn't have the mat. Like, the point of it was a counter pick to the Druid and Demon Hunters, and those are less popular now. So I think even he is on Weapon Rogue now, which, like you said, is probably one of the big winners of the balance changes, because if Druid's deleted, or in particular if Druid's additional taunt minions are deleted, it's going to be easier for Weapon Rogue to find purchase. It also probably didn't feel like, I don't know if it could race the Amulet Mage with the Solid Alibi. So those are probably...
It was close. Like,
yeah,
it was the closest matchup.
But if that deck slowed down, now it's going to be a lot swinging more in favor of the Rogue. So like, those are two pretty impactful changes for the deck, and probably like that's probably the most noticeable change, is that a deck that was probably already good, just had bad matchups, is now good because it doesn't have the same bad matchups.
Yeah, I think it does have a problem with the Beast Druid. The sentries and taunts can be a bit of a problem. But like, it's not like Beast Druid is going to become as popular as Questline Druid was.
No.
So it's still a win, like,
Right.
Post patch for the Rogue.
I'm wondering how to phrase this, because like, I wonder if they're going to do another patch, like another wave of bans in a couple weeks, or they're just going to let this ride out for the last like 4 weeks of the month and just kind of move on from there. You guys are fairly convinced that they're not going to really touch Twist again. So
if we're talking another patch in 2 weeks, that means there will be 1 week on that patch. Like,
yeah.
legitimately, what's the point at that point?
Yeah. All right. Well, if we're confident in that, I think I can be confident in saying that I also will be joining Roffle, not playing very much Twist. I know it's not my cup of tea. I know other people probably are out there having fun and enjoying it. I have very fully accepted that it is not my cup of tea. And so I had a stream where I tried really, really hard to enjoy New Twist, and it was just not happening for me. But different players, different cups of tea. I'm sure there's other phrases and things that go in here to slot into that. But
I mean, I like it more than Wild if you exclude the queue times. Like, if I had to rank the form, as long as I'm playing Demon Hunter, I like it more than Wild.
you just like it because you can't get Ashen Elemental.
Yes, it's like I'm playing the exact same format, except I can't get teched. It's fantastic. I love it.
That's the reason I don't like it. I'm playing the same exact format, but I can't stop them from doing anything.
You just described the problem, Corb.
No. For me, it's the solution. It's fantastic.
The duality of man, right here on the podcast episode. You love to see that. But yeah, I think probably not too much in terms of twist updates from us, probably for the rest of the month. But just a reminder that it will be going away next month. They're going to be taking a month off, and it'll be coming back. What's the month after that? September? What is time?
Oh, meow.
We don't.
Come
I
on,
don't
buddy.
know.
To be clear, we don't have confirmation
Yes,
of that. That's when
that's
people assume it's coming back, but just
You
said
don't
that
know
it
what
would
they
go
say
away.
about assuming. It's going to make an ass out
Right.
of me. So
Right. It just said that it would be going away for a brief period and then coming back. So we don't.
yeah,
Hopefully,
I'm
September.
assuming. My assumption is away for a month for them to fix internal things and then come back with a new format. In
Oh,
September.
dude, a New Age 2.0, it's gonna be fire. All right.
Don't jinx us
all
with that.
neutrals.
I can just hope that the next set is much different than New Age and
Like
Yeah,
before we completely move on, do you want to talk big picture about like the launch of this format and how it's gone?
we
or
talked
is
about
that
it a
just
little
too
bit last week,
depressing?
but I'm down to get into it again because I think it's been an absolute shit show in terms of getting
Oh, it's
people attached
so-
to the format.
So bad, like
Yeah.
horrific. I mean, I guess, like, what do we even talk about? Like, it's kind of like we're just going around in circles, you know. Just talk about, wow, this was a really kind of probably not great choice for the opener. I understand why it
intent.
happened, but you know, like, and then not doing preemptive bans or nerfs, kind of just like
Yeah.
immediately gutting it, and then the star bonus.
And the free
and the
context.
starter decks and the queue
Mhm.
times and where do we keep going? I mean, again, I think the biggest thing is like I understand why they chose this as their like initial launching off point. I get it. I just think that if you choose that, there was a lot of other issues that could have been preemptively addressed before then. Yeah, I guess yeah, we spent a little bit on it last week, so I don't want to dive too much into it again because you know it got kind of negative when we were talking about things last week about that. But
Well, yeah, and the problem is that I am very hopeful and optimistic for the format of Twist broadly moving forward. It's just that this was like very clearly a miss for a large portion of the player base.
yeah, I very much echo that sentiment as well. Like I will be probably, you know, in 3 months or whenever it comes back, probably in the same boat as Corb of like liking it more than Wild if it's like the right format, and I'll be advocating all for it. I still advocate for Twist. I think it was a great idea. I just this iteration of New Age was not it for the majority of people. So. All right, so that'll wrap it up for the Twist stuff. But let's talk about new cards. Let's talk about Titans. Let's talk about the new Titans that hadn't been revealed as of last week. So we got the rest of them that we'll talk about today, and then starting next week, we're gonna start getting the packages of cards start trickling in, which is I think the most exciting stuff. You know, the new packages for each deck. I said usually, right? Until we saw some of these Titans, because some of these Titans look absolutely insane. I think I'm confident to say that these cards are strong. They're going to see play in Wild before we even touch them. I'm pretty excited about them. Do you guys want to touch on Titans by themselves anymore before we dive into the specific ones?
No. I think we did a pretty good overview last time, and
I didn't know if any minds had been changed, any new things since last week, but.
The only thing I would recommend is for everyone to check out Songbird Cora's hotness tier list of the Titans on Twitter.
Oh,
if you're,
great content.
Great content, but like criminally underrated a few key players in that one.
I'll be keeping an eye out for your tier list then, Roffle, if you disagree.
Yeah, I will say it seems like she's got a little bit of something going on for the bad boys. The way she rated those really, really highly on her tier list, so it was pretty funny reading through that. All right, let's dive into the specific cards here while Roffle works on his tier list at the moment. So let's start with Death Knight, the Primus. So this is an 8-mana 7/9 Titan. No rune requirements. So he can go in literally every Demon Hunter deck. So both all the Demon Hunter variants and the Reno Demon Hunter and your Reno Blood and you know all of that. He goes in there as an 8-mana 7/9. After this, uses an ability, discover a card with that rune. So it is important to note before we even dive into these, they made that whole change like 3 months ago where you can no longer discover the triple runed cards. So you will not be able to discover Grave Strength Frostworm's Fury, all that stuff. Okay, so that's just important to note before you start evaluating these things. Each one of the 3 abilities has to do with one of the specific rune types. So you have Runes of Blood. Destroy an enemy minion. This minion and your hero gains its health. So Stelina on steroids. Or Celine, Natalie Celine. Is that the priest legendary that like destroys it and gains the health?
I know that card from Zeph. Yes.
Yeah, it's a Zeph card. Roffle's looking at me. He gave me a look. I was like, oh god, I'm wrong. Runes of the Unholy. Summon 2 3/3 undeads with Taunt and Reborn. And then Runes of Frost. The next spell you cast costs 3 less, and it has spell damage +3. Important to note that you can bank that. You do not have to use that discount and spell damage immediately. All right, so I mean, 8 mana. The discover options might not be the greatest things, but each of those 3 effects seem fairly strong, regardless of what deck you're playing it in.
Yeah, and Death Knight's discover pool is still narrow enough that you can still get a decent idea. That's as we increase the expansions and the card pool for it, it's, you know, it's losing its consistency a little bit already, but like there's a reason why people run a lot of discover effects in their Death Knight decks already. And this is just another like high value flexible card in, you know, any slow Death Knight deck. I'm into full disclosure, this is my favorite of the Titans. Maybe not the hottest, but you know, still very underrated by Cora, I think, because he's sweet. And yeah, I look forward to it. Like, you know, eventually I'm sure like a Reno Blood Death Knight deck will get there or become a little bit more relevant. It's kind of like seeing fringe play here and there. This is a good like toolbox card for that type of deck.
I think you play this in every Death Knight, except Odd. I think you play it in Even. I think you play it in Aggro Unholy. I think you play it in Aggro Frost in Standard. I think you play it everywhere. I think it's so good actually that in like Unholy in Standard, it's gonna be like the second best card in the deck behind Marigar. Like this will be the second best card in the deck behind Marigar in Wild Even Death Knight. I'm so high on this. You know, just nutty in terms of the immediate tempo, gets you value, something that Death Knight can struggle with. So, you know, it's both good in terms of immediate board. The Rune of Frost can be great in Frost with Howling Blast and give you like an immediate, big, juicy AoE. So I think Howling Blast can go back into the standard version of the deck. Obviously in Wild, we're mostly thinking about Even, but yeah, I still think it's fantastic in that deck as well. So, yeah. Great Titan. And the thing is, it's probably not even in my top 3 in terms of the power level of Titans. So that's about where I am with these damn cards.
Very, very high bar that you're setting here for the rest of these Titans. No, but I agree with you. My immediate thought was that like even Death Knight, which is a deck that like we don't ever talk about because nobody plays it because it's even Death Knight is a splashy top end card that goes up there, and it's great in the deck, just like stuff like Marigar and Sylvanas and all of the like the value pieces in even Death Knight are some of the best cards, and this is probably just going to be up there. I don't know if it by itself is going to help push all the Reno and the control decks, but it's like an important piece, right? You need cards like this in order to make those work, and you know, I think it's going to see a lot of play no matter what Death Knight deck you're playing, standard or wild.
I mean, I didn't need Corb to tell me that I was going to play this in every Death Knight deck, but like, you know, that's Roffle decks are different than what the typical you know, audience member listener plays. I'm sure. So, yeah, I'm very hyped for that card.
Yeah. All right, let's move to Demon Hunter. Let's talk about Argus the Emerald Star. 7 mana, 5/9 Titan. Minions to the left of this have Rush, and ones to the right have Lifesteal. So immediately on the surface with its ability, I'm in love. I love like positioning things like this, and you know, you play it, and immediately everything on your board has Lifesteal because you'll just play it on the far left, and then you just play all your minions on the left, and they all have Rush after you play Argus. So just by the baseline, the effect is powerful. Let's talk about his abilities. So the first one is Discover a Death Rattle minion. It costs 3 less. Discovering any random Death Rattle minion. Not that great in Wild, but Let's talk about the other ones. Reduce the cost of all minions in your hand by 2. That is juicy. That is a lot of mana discounts. And then the last one, summoning 4 2/2 elementals with taunt. And so this will summon 2 to the right and 2 to the left. So basically this reads summon 2 2/2 elementals with rush and 2 2/2 elementals with taunt and lifesteal. Which is, not bad.
Do we have confirmation that summons symmetrically, or?
I do not have confirmation, but I'm assuming that's how that will work. Like Dr. Boom.
That's my assumption as well. That like makes the most sense with the effect, but it would be kind of a bummer if they all go to the right and you don't get the rush off of that. But though, one of the primary ways that players will interact with Titans is by trading into them. So if they all do get taunt, that will kind of make that a little bit more difficult as well. So either way, I think the goal of that effect is to try and protect your Argus, and it seems
they all have taunt regardless.
Right,
it's just
that's what I'm saying.
Lifesteal versus rush. But yeah, I don't know. Like either way, I don't really care. Like it's either like a big glug with 4 2/2s, that has to be kind of killed off, or it gets like immediate tempo with the rush means on the left. So I think however you do it, it's almost always, it seems like, going to be the ability that you pick first. Just like most tempo good, and then it kind of becomes more of a value engine if it happens to live for a turn, which is really good. So yeah, Demon Hunter card's strong. Again, probably not a wild card because I don't see this going questline Demon Hunter, but another broken Titan, for standard mostly.
Right. You mean you don't want to reduce the cost of your brutes and wallopers to -2 mana?
I
mean, I could always do a little more mana cheating, Roffle. You know me.
Is there something we can do, like mana discount wise, with this card? Because that middle effect is insanely powerful, right?
Yes. No, it's. I was just playing a deck that could have used this recently. It relied on Relic of Dimensions to discount Bran and Yogg-Saron Master of Fate so that I could play Blur alongside it and go for the Rod of Roasting. Now you simply hold those cards both in your hand, and bam, you're in.
I don't know why I asked. I didn't know what a different answer I expected from that. But yeah, it will feel like a Titan that doesn't have an obvious home outside of Bran, Yogg-Saron, Demon Hunter, for a little bit. Just...
No, it's like there aren't many homes for good quality cards in Demon Hunter just because there's like a Demon Hunter deck that people are playing right now. Yeah. So,
and people won't change while players are set in their ways. All right, let's move all the way down to the Paladin Titan here, Amethyst the Peacekeeper. So she's a 7-mana 1/8 with taunt. So 1/8 taunt for 7. Your minions can't take more than 2 damage at a time. So that means from AoE spells, from minion combat, like anything like that, only 2 damage at a time. So just on its surface, feels very I don't know if Cariel hero card is a comparable effect, but Cariel for your minions. All right, and then our 3 abilities. You have Reinforced, which is draw 2 minions, set their attack, health, and cost to 2. Empowered, give your other minions on the board +2/+2. I'm assuming it just says give your other minions +2/+2. Is that everywhere or just on the board?
No, it'll be minion on the board.
Okay. And then Pacified, set the attack and health of all enemy minions to 2. Okay, I have to make the comment. I think I've made this before. There's 2 everywhere except her attack, which is a little bit confusing. But
no, well, because that would be bonkers if you could just play her, set the attack and health of everything to 2. They all die because she has taunt. If she didn't have taunt, it might make sense. But like, there's no way you could give this card taunt and like the opponents have to destroy their board into it. Like that would.
But why not?
There's a reason it also says your other minions get +2/+2. They don't want this card to have 2 attack, at least the turn that it comes out. Now that said, it is Paladin. There are many ways that you can make that happen. So it's like,
it's well, I had to get that out of the way though, right? Like,
no, I know everybody's been talking about it, but like, for gameplay balance reasons, you do not want this card's attack to be 2.
All right. Besides the attack at 2, okay. But attack at 1 still broken.
I don't know about broken.
Yeah, I don't know. Like Paladin is obviously a class that gears very aggressive right now in Wild with mechs. Would I play this an odd Paladin? I don't know. I mean, it's a big AoE buff, like a very late game kind of card, but you know, a matchup like Reno Priest, I imagine they don't really enjoy having Amatus as a threat, you know, because it's very annoying to get rid of. Like in hand buff palette, you know, you're talking about giving it extra attack. Like, can you imagine coming down with like, I don't know, like a 5/12 version of this on turn 7? That seems very, very annoying, potentially. Like, all of a sudden the matchup like Kingsbane kind of soloed, or Questline Druid is kind of soloed, so it's kind of like a very interesting niche use with it right now in the current Wild format. Yeah.
The draw 2 minions would fit well into hand buff as well, because like, you know, at that stage in the game, they're probably going to want to refill a little bit. Your minions start out kind of small, so making, you know, that might end up being a buff if they're like 1/1s. So yeah, I think that's maybe a good shout, as well as, you know, Reno Paladin is just a pile of minions anyway.
Yeah, but they're all 7-cost minions, so you're getting a little bit clunky there.
Yeah.
I might regret making this comparison, but you know, this was like 2 years ago when Cariel originally released and was 7 mana, the hero card. She was shoved in everything, including decks like Aggro Paladin and Odd Paladin, and she was just really good in those decks because she was just like a busted card on her own, and I could see Amethyst kind of filling a similar role, obviously to a much different role than Cariel, but you know, you can't sticky fingers in Amethyst, so you at least got that going for you. Sidebar, I did that twice against Arena Paladin. I sticky fingered the Cariel weapon, and I felt I was running sticky finger for the chat memes. I just have to make sure that was out there. It was in the ETC at least, but I did sticky finger a Cariel weapon twice, and it felt gross.
That's worse though, right? You realize that's worse.
Acknowledging that it's bad and still playing it?
No, that it's in the ETC.
Oh, yeah. Look, it's for the memes, all right? It's for the memes. Regardless, I could see Amethyst filling kind of a similar role to pre-nerf Cariel. Like, you kind of have like soft AoE, right? She has taunt, can only take 2 damage at a time, and you can set all the enemy minions to 2/2, right? So it's a soft Cariel effect with upside, and so I could see her seeing play.
I could definitely see her seeing play as well. I think it's more likely to happen in an odd paladin type deck than like a mech paladin, for instance, which are the 2 primary paladin decks that are played in our format. Like I have a hard time envisioning it like being fast enough for mech paladin.
Now let's go to, I don't want to call this the most underwhelming Titan here, but I'm going to call it maybe the most underwhelming Titan. And that is Voltron Prime. So this is the Rogue Titan here. 6 mana, 3/5 mech Titan. This minion's abilities repeat on another random friendly minion. So the 3 abilities, gain +2/+1, deal 4 damage to a random enemy. So this is 4/2, deal 4 twice. Powerful effect. You have full power, which is +1/+2, draw a card. So that's 2 cards. And then maximize defenses. So 3 health and can't be targeted by spells or heroes. So that's 2 minions, 6 health. I say underwhelming because like I feel like the effects are powerful, but like where does this ever see play? Because there is really no board-based snowbally rogue deck in Wild, right? There's Pirate Rogue, but I wouldn't really call that board-based past like turn 3.
Here's what I'm thinking. I don't disagree that it has probably the least flashy effects that like, I don't know, make progress in terms of the board state. I think is part of what maybe makes it one of the least exciting cards. Like it doesn't feel like it can catch you back up on board for playing a 6 mana 3/5 that can attack for 3 turns. we've already seen one magnetic mech in Rogue. I wouldn't be surprised if the idea is that you just magnetize onto Voltron, and that's why the magnetized or maximized defenses is there, so that it can just like, when it is able to attack, it can like burst down some damage, and you ensure that you get to make use of all three abilities. That's kind of my assumption with it. Is that going to be good? I don't know, man. Like we haven't seen the rest of the cards yet. Like I don't know. A lot of times things that don't have the flashiest effects kind of fly under the radar. Everybody dismisses them, and then they just kind of end up being good anyway. Like Questline Druid is a really good example of that. Again, last week we made the Krakatoa comparison. The one thing I will say is that there are a lot of people labeling this and the Warrior Titan as definitively the worst Titans of the bunch. And very nearly without fail, anytime those types of confident claims have been made in the past, they've been wrong, and those cards just kind of end up being at least pretty good. So I don't know. I wouldn't write any of these cards off yet, especially the the fact that as a mech tag could be relevant for what they have with the rest of the set coming out. And we have Mech Warper in Wild, so if it is a mech heavy set, there could be something there.
Yeah, this definitely might be a, like Rob was talking about, a wait and see card, because on its own it seems a little bit underwhelming. But that said, like if you are playing a rogue that gets ahead on board, the first effect is deal 10 damage, basically. Like if you're on a naked board, deal 4 to a random enemy twice, and then give +2/+1. So it can be a lot of lethality. I wonder how it compares to a Krakatoa. Krakatoa is obviously better on a naked board, where it doesn't need a buddy, whereas Voltron Prime is probably a little bit better at pushing for lethal if you're already, ahead. But it wouldn't shock me if this was actually quite solid. In Wild, probably not. Much like how Krakatoa is actually a very good card, but just doesn't really have a home.
Just you wait for Mech Rogue.
I will eagerly await. Yes.
Is this Iron Sensei's time to finally shine?
No.
Is that what Roffle's predicting here?
No, I will never predict something that foolish. Again.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to make sure that it's clear. Like, I mean, underwhelming isn't the fact. Is like it's very hard to be excited about these abilities because it's really hard to find it's not just slap and play in a Reno deck or things like that, because like many of the maybe it is. But like I'm like I don't know that I could play. You can't play this in like Pirate Rogue, can you? 6 mana, no discounts, things like that. And like that's feels like the most obvious home for a card like this right now in the format. But those effects are powerful. Like they're all pretty powerful, especially if you get multiple of them off. Like I don't know. We'll see. We'll kind of see how the rest of the set looks, and if that maybe changes my opinion.
Right, and it does feel like one of the ones where it's easier to get multiple effects off, just because of that the combination between the first and the third options, where the first one's better in like a deck where there's or a matchup where there's some board conflict, whereas the third one's better against a control deck that's trying to remove your stuff. So like feels a little bit easier to stick. It comes down earlier than some of the other ones. So you could very likely get multiple abilities off of it, and you can put a spider on it and give it stealth for a turn. So I think that's really what the intent of spider is that you're just meant to give this stealth so you can get another ability off on a following turn.
Yeah, or you go like spider on 5, play this on 6, and then you immediately like have the minion to either draw 2 cards or
right.
Yeah.
But I think you play this on 6, spider on. This isn't for Wild, obviously. You play this on 6, use an ability. 7, use an ability, put a spider on it. That all but guarantees the third ability, and then turn 8, potentially you get to attack with it, use its third ability, and potentially put more magnetic stuff on it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's going to be good, but again, I feel like that's the intent.
I guess. Okay, for the Reno Rogue enjoyers that are out here in Wild. So I know if you make a copy of a Titan, it remembers what abilities had been used before, right? So like if you play Druid 1, refresh mana, make a copy of it, you can't refresh mana again. If you Shadow Step Voltron Prime, does it remember what abilities it's used before? If you like replay it, does it reset?
It would reset.
It reset. Okay.
Because it's changing. It's going backwards in zone. It would
Remember all that.
It would lose its effects.
Okay. So yeah. So I mean, all the Shadow Steps and Tenwus and things like that. Maybe there's something you can do here with, shenanigans and Rena Rogue. That you aren't already doing with stuff like Zeph. But we'll see. All right. Let's move on to the Shaman one. This one I'm super excited for. Golganeth the Thunderer. This is a 6-mana 5/7 Titan. Its ability, just passive effect. Your first spell each turn costs 3 less. So a lot of mana cheat right up front. You have the 3 abilities. Deal 3 damage to all enemies and restore 6 health to all friendly characters. That's like a 6-mana Brucon, by the way. Like, that's just first ability. I want to point that out. Lord of the Skies, deal 20 damage to a minion. And then Sargon's Wrath, draw 3 Overload cards. Am I wrong in just thinking that this card is cracked and is going to go in Even Shaman, Arena Shaman, and Shudderwalk Shaman, and every Shaman deck? Except maybe Big Shaman, but also maybe Big Shaman. This card's insane, right? Like, it does so much.
I feel like you have to change the builds a little bit for those decks, though, don't you? Like,
just play Lightning Storm like you probably should be anyways, because that card's good.
Okay, sure. so yeah, you're just drawing fewer cards off of the Wrath, and that's probably fine because they're going to be free Lightning Storms anyway, and Lightning Storm's gotten better after the buff. And then just honestly, that first ability on its own is very good. Like, just coming down. Yeah, that's you've convinced me. I was a little skeptical on this one, but like now I'm seeing, it makes slight changes to it, and it's probably just very, very good.
Even if you're just playing it for that first ability, that first ability is so insane.
The thing is that like, eventually you're going. Well, I guess you could just bounce it with like a Grumble and then get that first ability multiple times. Like, yeah. I mean, you don't have to run, or people can stop finally running healing spells as a result of this card as well. Not that most sane Shudderwalk players were, but there's no excuse to be doing so anymore. So, yeah, card's probably good. I think, it has no like clear and obvious home for like all 3 effects as of yet, but like you said, the first one is just really good.
Yeah, I think this is the best Titan. I think this is very, very broken. I'm kind of like vaguely blanket assuming none of them get nerfed because, like, I don't know, the Colossals didn't get nerfed. It's probably easy to nerf around this. But, once we get to our top 5 strongest cards of the set, I would not be shocked if this was in my top 5. You will play it in Even Shaman. You will play it in Shadowwalk Shaman. You will play it in all your Shaman decks. Maybe Big Shaman, like Meowth said, I'm a little unsure about. But, yeah, probably not there. But it doesn't really matter. In Even Shaman, you get Crackles, you get Jam Sessions. Crackles synergizes with Crackle. It's good to have both the Crackles in hand at once, so that's always nice. So that works. And, yeah, I don't know. There'll be other good cards in, like, Shadowwalk Shaman that you can play Lightning Storms and whatever. There'll be stuff. But you're playing it mostly for that very first effect. That big AoE with the healing. Just super broken.
Yeah. Look, if you cheat it out in Big Shaman, then you, like, use it to draw more cards. If you are Eureka-ing it into play, you get an AoE every turn. Like, I don't know, man. I can see it in Big Shaman too. But yeah, I'm excited about this.
I could see it in Big Shaman as well, just for that the first and third ability for sure.
Yeah. All right, I'm excited about the Shaman one. I wouldn't be surprised if it got nerfed. But like you said, they didn't nerf any of the Colossal minions, except for Nelly, like 14 times. But
I forgot about Nelly.
Yeah, but Nelly wasn't a wild card at the time, so of course you didn't know it, and you weren't playing Standard at the time, so you got excuses. That does also remind me, at some point here in the future, we do need to revisit our Festival of Legends predictions and laugh about how we all put Rush the Stage in our top 5. I know that one for sure. So we'll revisit it at some point before the next expansion. All right, let's talk about the next Titan here. We have the Warlock one, Sargeras. Say that again.
Sargeras.
Sargeras, the Destroyer. All right. He's a 9 mana, 6/12 demon, but he has a battle cry. So no void colors, no cheating into play. You have to pay the good old 9 mana. But if you do that, you get a portal that summons 2/3/2 imps each turn. Whoa, I think I've seen this text before somewhere. But his 3 abilities, he's got the Twisting Nether, or wait, no, that's the name of the portal. Sorry. To the Void, send all other minions into the Twisting Nether. It was clarified on Twitter that this is not actually a Twisting Nether effect, but more an Amazing Reno effect, where it poofs everything but Sargeras. So no death rattles are triggered. You can't reanimate or res like a Neptulon if it's like the first time it's been on the board, stuff like that. You have Inferno, summon 2 6/6 Infernals from the Twisting Nether, throwback to Lord Jaraxxus. And then you have Legion Invasion, future demons summoned from the Twisting Nether have +2 health and taunt. Correct me if I'm wrong, these summon at the end of your turn. So it could immediately just come down and be summoned 2, 3, 4s with taunt, kind of like baseline or Twisting Nether the board, things like that. It's not Twisting Nether, it's poofing the board, whatever. Man, the fact that this is a battle cry and you can't void collar it or you can't skull it makes me very hesitant. But it's a win con attached to a card that can't be interacted with once it's on the board, right? You can't interact with that portal, so.
No. But I think the fact that it's a battle cry is very intentional because void color is very legal in standard with the core set changes. I have a hard time feeling that this will see much play in our format when, like, if slow warlocks were going to be good, a win condition isn't really what they're lacking. It's like the ability to get to that point, right? Like they have a plethora of win conditions. They don't need to wait on Sargeras, and like slow attrition strategies don't really work in Wild and haven't for quite some time. So it's more of like an issue with the metagame and like what you're expected to queue into that will probably make this less than playable. I mean, you might still just shove it in a Reno Lock as your top end, but like again, your matchups are what make Reno Lock a difficult deck to play right now.
Yeah, that's not a wild card really. Just too slow, you know.
Yeah, I'm just saying we're 2 cards in. That buff to the location of 2 mana. That prediction looking better and better. I'm messing. All right, our last Titan here is the Warrior 1, Khazgaroth, or something along those lines. We're gonna go with it. 6 mana 4/4 Titan. After this uses an ability, gain immune this turn and attack a random enemy minion. So before we even go any further, attacking a random enemy minion does not use up the attack for the turn. They kind of clarified on Twitter that they had cleaned that up for a couple of cards. And so you use an ability, he'll gain immune, he'll attack, and then you, starting on the second or the third turn that you have him, you can attack after using an ability again. At least that's my understanding. His 3 abilities, you have gain +2/+2, draw a weapon. You have gain +5 attack, give your hero +5 attack this turn. And then you have Heart of Flame, gain 5 health, give your hero 5 armor. So you've kind of got 3 drastically different options here. You have a 6 mana 4/9, gain 5, immune minion that attacks something. A 6 mana 9/4 immune that attacks something, as well as giving your hero +5 attack. Or a 6 mana 6/6 that draws you a weapon that attacks a random enemy minion. So kind of got all 3, parts of the triangle here when it comes to Warrior. Not super flashy, like Roffle kind of alluded to earlier. But how are y'all's general feels about this?
I think it's probably a good quality card without much of a home. I don't know. It's again one that feels a little bit easier to stick than some of the others, just because of the constant attacking. You can beef up as caboose if need be. It just kind of feels like a good control warrior card, but we don't have that archetype in our format, so I don't know what you're doing with it necessarily. Maybe you just shove it in an enrage warrior deck because it's good enough. You can give it some extra stats with the anime, but that deck hasn't really seen a whole lot of play lately. So it seems fine. I'll play the card. I think it's cool. I like the immune and attacking thing. I wonder how, like, maybe there are cute things you can do with OG Rikara on that as well and really beef up its stats. I think it has interesting decision points with which one you choose in different situations. Like maybe you give it attack so that it can kill the big minion that's on the opposing board. Maybe you give it health so that it's harder to remove if the opponent's gone wide. I think it's more interesting than people are giving it credit for, and probably a better card than people are giving it credit for.
Well, I'm one of the people not giving it credit then. I don't know. This looks like a warrior card to me. Looks really warrior. That's what I think compared to some of the other Titans. God, so much hype about what warrior is going to be coming into the rotation. And I guess in some ways it has delivered. Like, people shit on warrior a lot, and then we ended up getting the buffed rifts, and we got enrage and menagerie. But in terms of these slower armor type warrior cards, these things get to slower archetypes, they continue to be not very flashy, and for me not particularly exciting. So yeah, I don't love this one. Like, I think the power level is on the lower side of the Titans. That still means that I think it's a solid card. Like, I would still play this in decks. I just wouldn't happen to play any warrior decks that would want this in the first place, I don't think.
Yeah, I think it's similar to the rogue one, where like it feels like it's a good enough card to see play if there was a deck that wanted it, at least in wild. I'm sure it'll just go probably in a variety of warrior decks in standard, as like we got to give Krakatoa like an award here because we're gonna keep mentioning it. Like it went in like decent amount of rogue decks, right? In its lifetime in standard, I could see this just doing the same thing where it like just slots into warrior decks regardless of kind of the archetype in standard. I don't know that it'll do the same thing though in wild, mainly because people don't play warrior in wild, which is a big deal,
right?
As well.
Like the lack of play this card will see in wild is not due to the card itself; it's due to the lack of warrior in wild, or the lack of availability of warrior decks in the format. So like it's not his fault. Like I don't think any of the Titans like single-handedly create an archetype around them, right? They're just like utility pieces. So we can't blame him for not making a deck in wild, or a warrior deck in wild work when we currently don't really have that going on.
I can't blame him for not being a 3-mana 4/4 pirate that you just shove in all pirate warrior decks, right? Totally. Tangent. When are we gonna start giving Warlock the warrior treatment, where people complain?
Oh, we just shit on it.
Yeah, we just haven't gotten any new cards for like 2 years. I mean, Warrior's still kind of in the midst of that, so maybe it's too soon to be giving it to a new class. But yeah, Warrior in the dumps, Warlock in the dumps, kind of just generally. I'm excited. To sum up the Titan talk, I think both of the I guess maybe the Warlock one less so. The Warrior Titan, I think we'll see play if a deck comes up that wants it. Maybe Enraged Warrior is that home. Like it does work really nicely with Anima Extractor buffs. I don't know if it's like better than something like Grom or Remornia, but it's a Titan. It's flashy, all that kind of good stuff. Excited to see the rest of the cards there for both of these classes because I think they need the help. Maybe we'll be talking about some busted stuff, next week when we start talking about cards. All right. Any last comments you guys want to make now that we've seen all of the Titans? If you had to say top 2, spoiler, we won't go too hard. Spoil our top 5 at the end of the set. But if you had to pick 2 Titans, one of them is Shaman. What's the other one?
No, neither of mine are Shaman.
What?
I'm not talking about strength. I'm talking about the ones I'm most excited about. I'm looking forward to both the Primus and Amon Thul myself. Those are the ones that seem the most interesting. they have very similar passive effects. I'm just realizing, and maybe that's just me having.
That's not a maybe. It's 100% just you.
Yeah.
That makes
Okay.
sense.
So,
So that's
clearly,
the Demon Hunter or Death Knight and the priest one, right?
clearly, I have a type when it comes to Titans, and it's old men with beards, with white beards.
All right. Tier list already spoiled as well, too, for that Twitter thread.
True.
Yeah, I'll say the ones that I'm most excited for. Well, the one I'm gonna hate the most, I think, is a Montauk. Man, that card is strong as hell, and I'm gonna hate it so much every time the Reno Priest plays it. It's another behemoth. But yeah, I think Shaman and the Druid one. The Druid one could be very interesting with deck building and potential combos that it opens up with the mana refresh, and then all of a sudden you can floop and stuff. I think we covered that last episode, but yeah, there could be some really wacky stuff that you could do with that.
Yeah. I think for me, I'm kind of in agreement. I think the strongest one on first opinion is the Shaman one. The one that I'm going to hate the most is the priest one as well. Everything Roffle loves, turns out we hate. Again, the dichotomy of man on this podcast. But then, yeah, I'm intrigued by the druid one. I'm also intrigued by the priest one because I think people are sleeping on that one.
Priest?
Not the priest, the mage one. Sorry.
There we go.
The Norganon. The more I think about it, like the more it kind of just makes sense. I'm the secret mage apologist. Like the more I think about it, the more it kind of just makes sense in secret mage, and like mainly maybe it's just because I absolutely despise Orion, yet he still finds its way in my deck list somehow. Just it makes me really intrigued of just like putting this in over that, and it just makes a lot of sense.
I mean, if the 3/8 sticks for one turn, it's a pyroblast right to the head.
Yeah, it's insane.
Like that's a lot of damage. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited. We have another 3 weeks of card reveals before we get to the actual expansion that comes out on August. I think it's just August 1st, right? The first day of the month is a brand new expansion. I believe that's what it was in the thing. I might be misremembering. But yeah, well, I'm excited to dive into card reviews though. I'm excited to see kind of how they support these Titans and things like that. All of that will be kicking off Monday morning as well. All right. Any last comments you guys want to have about Titans? Or twist if we want to wrap back to the beginning of the episode here, because we're nearing on an hour. So
no, I'm excited for Titans themselves. I'm kind of glad that they revealed all of the class Titans first to kind of set that tone for the expansion, as well as just like, I don't know, give people that fixate on a single class or attracted to a certain class something to look forward to. I guess so. Like, I don't know. It feels like a good way to do the reveals to get some early hype going.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. Don't have to sit around and wait for another 3 weeks about what speculating what the druid one could be. But no, I'm super eager for the deck building part. Like it's all kicking off, and even if you're not loving Twist, and even if you're a bit burnt out on Wild, it doesn't matter because we have like 3 weeks of theory crafting, and they're kind of giving us all the keys to be able to do that. So that'll fill in the time as well. We'll have a good time with that.
Yeah, it's always an exciting part, right? You got 3 weeks of playing Wild, and then you got a month of, man, I hate Wild. I can't wait for the new stuff to come. Let's go, let's play. It's theorycraft, and it's that time of the season, right? Okay, hating Wild might be a little bit strong. I don't know why I said that. I don't actually hate it, but like being tired of Wild because you're excited for new stuff. I think that's what I meant. Might have been a Freudian slip. We'll see. But that's gonna be it for today's episode. I think before we wrap up, we do want to note there will be a Wild Vicious Syndicate report coming out on Monday as well. So if you guys are interested in any of that, Corb and I worked on that. Mainly Corb did a lot of work on it. So want to shout that out. Make sure you guys check it out. It'll be live sometime in the afternoon. I don't remember specifically what time it goes live. But that'll be live on Monday if you guys want to check that out. And yeah, speaking of checking out Roffle and Corb, you guys want to let the people know where they can find you guys and check out your content?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitch and YouTube at Roffle, but do actually make sure to check out the report. They always do good work on those, so good job, guys.
Thank you. And you can always find me at Corbettgames on Twitter and YouTube, or just Corbett on Twitch.
You guys can find me at Get Me Out on all of those platforms. Thanks again to everybody that listens all the way to the end. Appreciate you guys a ton. Hopefully you guys are looking forward to reveal season like we are, and we will see you guys again next time. Later.